to Set Life. I'm Amber Buto.
I'm Kelly Leger.
And today we have a dear friend of mine and a great friend of the studio who does all kinds of fun stuff in production. I can't wait for you to meet her. I can't wait for you to hear her story, how she got into it, what she's been doing in the industry. And she's one of the ones that went the conventional way. She actually went to film school and did the whole trail of that. And it's really great to hear that. So welcome to the show, Valeria. We are so glad to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really fun to just see you guys kind of capture, unique stories, I guess, here.
Yeah, thanks.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so, okay. Because what's what we do here, we talk about inspiring stories of the industry. So we're going to learn all about your story today. I'm super excited. We learn things about you when we get the paperwork and stuff that y'all all fill out to come be on the show and everything. That's great. Talk us through, you've always wanted to be in this industry, kind of, right?
Yes, very much so. But I think in the film industry, there's a lot of, I always have, since I was 12, I was just like, I want to write scripts. That's where it started. When I was in middle school, I was like, I just want to write scripts, and that's what I want to do, tell stories. But I think it's very common, I think it's common in the industry where it's almost like it just pulls you in. It's not even like a choice. You just know that that's what you want to do from a very early age. And it's almost like difficult because it's like, okay, I don't have a choice. This is what I have to do because I just want to tell stories through film. And you just kind of go for it. From there, it's almost like the challenge of, okay, how do I get there? Because it's not traditional. And I grew up in Houston, Texas. So Texas is very much oil and gas industry. Yep. We all know, it's an amazing place to grow up. But, anything film industry or entertainment industry feels very far away. Yeah. So when you're not around it as much, or how do you get there? I think is a big, big sort of step for anyone maybe who is in other parts, right, of the country or other countries, right? How do you get
That's true.
there?
Which is one of the reasons we really felt passionate about starting this podcast, so that you could tune in and hear how other people did it, and they did it not in the way that you think, I got to live in LA, or I got to live in New York, or I got to live in Atlanta. I've got to live, one of those places to get any kind of work or do anything in the industry. And that's not the case at all.
No,
We've interviewed so many people here from Houston that have worked everywhere. And this is their home. H-Town is their home. And so, but not everyone has the education that you went and, seeked and got to be in this industry. So, that's really cool that was the path that you were able to take, and all the things that you learned in that. So, okay, at 12 you wanted a script, right? So that was what drew you in.
Yes, the writing. Yes.
Was the writing.
What was it? I'm curious though.
Yeah.
What was it about the writing? What drew you? What aspect? What was it? The craft? What was it?
I don't know. I think writers, I almost want to say, I don't know if you just are born wanting to write. That sounds so weird to say, but I always wrote poetry, and then from there I would just write scripts on my computer in high school. Wow. And I made short films when I was a freshman in high school. My first short film was called The Elevator, about a woman who is a runaway bride and meets someone in an elevator, and they've fall in love in the elevator in 5 minutes. Oh. And I was just so running around kind of creating I think when you're younger though too, as I've gotten older now, when you're younger, you're not afraid to just make things, right? At all. Yes. But as you get older, it's interesting how there's almost, you're more, I think, is it going to be good? Is what I make going to be good? But when I was younger, I was just I'm going to go make things. And that's what I did with friends in high school. Yeah. We would literally be running around making movies on the weekends and editing them. And I also had an amazing film teacher in high school. There's sort of a school that allows you to take film classes in Houston, Spring Branch ISD. And so I would just say I had kind of this very early educator that inspired me and was wow, this is, amazing. How you edit, this is how you, do production. And we would go into her class and she would just make us think about storytelling. And it was bad, right? My stuff it was bad. But I think you
Even
just
the elevator, because I'm like lost in the elevator still. I'm just thinking.
I know, I'm
it's
liking
pretty
it.
bad.
I'm in the elevator.
It's
fell
pretty
off.
bad. I'm from Mexico, and my aunt was in it as the actress, and she has a very thick accent, so it just did not go well. But yeah, it's funny thinking about it now, like just to be doing that at that age, and just like wanting to kind of figure out how to do that, and then.
But that's kind of how you figure it out.
I think so.
That's true.
And I can tell you that I have sat and talked to a lot of people, and the courage that it took for you to just do that. I mean, a lot of people just keep the idea on the piece of paper. They start with the gift of writing, and they just keep it in. They keep it there, and they don't go and take that and turn that into a vision. And even if you are a writer, predominantly, you're not a director, you're not a cinematographer, but you go and go, hey, I got this idea, and go find somebody in your class that wants to be a director, that wants to do cinematography, that wants to do lighting and sound, and you find a
creative
team.
Collaborators.
Yes,
that is the biggest thing. Like when college and now, like just finding those collaborators, whether it's maybe you are more of a producer. Like I'm very much a writer, but very much I would say like just a non-writing creative producer now. Is what I do the best, and finding just collaborators that are those directors of photography or directors or just other people to do it with you. That is the biggest thing for sure.
Wow. So you went from the elevator script. I'm still stuck. I'm in the elevator. I'm still in the elevator. I'm only on the second floor, y'all. I haven't gotten my way. I'm not going. So,
you're like wanting to hear the whole thing.
No.
Like your director
I'm
self.
the director.
Your
the
director self
so
is
it's
like,
so tell me everything, writer. Tell me everything. Now why? Why did she leave the wedding? Okay. We won't do it. So fast forward past the elevator.
Like, how do I sum up such a long?
Yes. Elevator made it all the way down to the floor. You're out. You're walked out of the building. Okay. So now, flash forward. You have been producing commercials. You're pitching TV shows. You have things screened at Cannes Film Festival, at Berlin Film Festival. Like, how do we get from the elevator to this career?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because I can like actually say this out loud here. I don't say it much, but it's like the only thing I've ever done for work like has been production. Like that's it. And that's kind of, I think, maybe, that, like high school me would like, that'd be crazy to say.
Yes.
But I was just obsessed with being on set from a very early age. And so when I graduated high school, I became a production assistant. I went to Austin, Texas, the amazing independent film community in Austin. And at that time, the Texas film incentives were really great. And so there were so many network TV shows, like The Leftovers from HBO was there. There were so many independent movies. There was like a Richard Linklater movie that he was doing at the time. And so I just found a way to be on set as a production assistant, and that taught me so much. So I would really say physical production all throughout college was kind of how I learned. And then I went on to do production coordinator, which I production coordinated a film that went to Cannes, didn't produce it, just production coordinated it.
Sure.
And then, that led me to sort of be in the physical production world, which is really hard. I think we all dream about being on a film set, but then when we get there, especially the below the line positions, I mean, it's 12 hours, 14 hours, months at a time. You have to like miss a lot of, life things. Maybe you're traveling for production, so you miss things. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, I've learned so much. And then I was production managing commercials. I kind of had to take a step back, and I thought, okay, when I do this again, I had a really hard feature that I did that just really like took the life out of me. When I do this again, I want to make sure that it's my project, or that I either produce the project, or that it's something that I own, like maybe a project that I have equity in, right? And so that really led me to seeking out producing, which is how I landed in producing commercials. So I actually had to take a step back away from coordinating and production assistant, and I declined jobs. Like I just would say no to being a production assistant, which was
brave.
Kind of hard.
Yeah.
And then that, and sometimes it's like saying no so you can take the next opportunity.
Yes.
Sure.
And then while I was doing all of that, I was also cheerleading in college. So I don't know how I did that, but it was just really, were you a cheerleader too?
Yeah. But
Cheerleader.
Really?
cheerleader.
I didn't know that
Football
about
guy.
you.
I was not a football guy.
you were not a football.
No.
You were not a football.
It's in the theater department.
Yeah, yeah.
Y'all cheerleading. Anyway.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
But you're so right with sometimes having. I mean, that's in the industry. They say that all the time. Like if you're PA and PA and PA and PA, and eventually you got to say no to PA jobs to be seen as something else.
Right.
Right. To try to
Yes.
get one of the other jobs, and then when you get there, it's always. It seems like you're taking a step back, but you're actually promoting yourself one step
Yes.
further. When you're doing an excellent job at that, those opportunities come.
Right.
Isn't it funny how like what seems like you're getting out of position is actually putting you in position,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I kept saying when you were saying that, I was like, that's brave, because that's a step to do that when you're on this kind of trajectory,
Yeah.
and realizing it's not exactly where I want to go, so you have to pivot. That's been kind of
Yeah.
our word for today.
Yes, it
Go to
has.
something else. That was awesome. I mean,
What do you think the factor was for you when you were working on those and you were PAing and stuff, and you said you had to take a step back, and you were like, unless I have some kind of equity in it, unless I'm producing it, why did you make that choice? What were you seeing at the place you were at that was like, this isn't what I want, and why is it not what you want, and what did you want to see?
Yeah, so I think so I was in physical production for many years, but I always wanted to produce stories, and really from, I would say, like a perspective where you're sort of bringing the story to fruition from beginning to end. And I remember being on an unscripted show that was a car show that was filming in Texas, and there was a showrunner on it and an executive producer. And that executive producer came to the set for like 2 days. Like we had already been there for like 3 weeks, right? And then he just shows up one day, and everyone's like, oh, this is the person that pitched the series. This is the person that, sold the show. He found the talent. And then he came on for 2 days, and then he left. And then we were still there making the show. So I said, okay, like how can I become
How do I
that
get
guy?
that
I want to
job?
be that guy. It was weird. And I remember being like a senior in college, and I was looking up life rights. Like how do I find life rights for, how do I sell a show? And then I would call the showrunner that I had worked under as his assistant and be like, hey, like I really want to pitch series. And everyone was like, oh, okay, like that's nice. Like, I don't think they took me seriously, but I was just researching. I was calling entertainment lawyers and like showing up, trying to get, figuring out how do you do this. And I had no idea. And so I always wanted to, I eventually found out that film development and like you could do development and what that was, which isn't production. A lot of people probably don't know what development is.
Yep.
And so ended up going that direction. And I think it's all tied to telling stories, right? And so it's finding the intellectual property, and I think really understanding that space and how to develop a project and then pitch it to a network led me to kind of be director of development at a production company for, the last couple of years, and start trying to dive into what does it look like to really produce something, from the ground up.
I think that is a topic that is so underserved. Like really, development is a topic that absolutely needs to be taught more.
define that for people, like film development. Okay, so like maybe give some people some of the aspects that are going to film. How do I develop what does that look like? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, Amber, I think you could speak to this as well, because you do, you and I have so many
just gonna, like, just point
conversations
back and forth. Yeah.
about, well, when I first met Amber, I just remember finding someone that was also in that space and was so passionate about finding stories and, developing them from the ground up. But I would just define it as, it's a lot of seeking out that intellectual property and then from there packaging a project and bringing it to fruition. So attaching talent or attaching directors or receiving a script, but the script is probably not ready to go into production. So you have to spend a lot of time with a director giving them notes and feedback until you're, ready to go into production.
I would say the development process, without development, there are no shows.
True.
And that's a huge statement to say, but it's the absolute truth.
You just don't show up and shoot something?
No.
Okay.
And how well the development is depicts where and how it can go to market. So development looks like somebody has a great idea. Like, that's amazing. I love that idea, and I think that is a concept that could work. Great. Can you put that into a treatment? Can you put that into, you eventually have to get it into a script. Is it based on a book? Is it based on somebody's life? And if so, you've got what she's talking about. You have to go and get the IP.
So something here that is digestible through a treatment, through ultimately a script, through something that I can now.
Well, it's going to get to flush out the idea, right? And that's what your treatments and stuff are going to be. Then you're going to go, okay, I can see where this is going to go. Then you got to go and pay somebody. We got to pay somebody to write the treatment. Then you got to go pay somebody to write the script. Then you got to go refine the script. Then you got to go and go, okay, we're decent on the script, but what director's going to direct this now? What director's going to want to attach this? So when that director comes on, what she's saying, then you got to get with the director and go, how do you see this? What do we need in this?
What director's going to help me sell the script? Because they have that kind of work.
Yep.
Or a production company. You can do co-production deals to get something. It's really that packaging of a project. And there's development positions either at production companies where you can develop for them, or obviously at networks. So it's almost like the lifeblood of the industry, these executives that are kind of behind the curtain, pushing things forward.
Yep, and they're the ones that you talk to try to get your idea of whatever the concept that you have. So a lot of people will say, "Oh, I got a pilot," and they come to you and they show you the pilot, and you're like, "That will not work." And then I feel terrible because you're like, I know you spent XYZ on shooting that pilot, and no, you didn't even know if that idea was even going to work for the network. So it's understanding distribution and who wants what and what kind of things they want. And then you go, okay, then you go back and look at the creatives, and you go back and look at the IPs, you go back and look, and then you start developing that concept with a few places in mind, knowing that if you've already had conversations with them, like I know one of the places that Valeria has a good relationship with, they're really clear that they want sports documentaries. Okay, so she knows when she's out looking for IP and she's out looking at projects, I know it may not be a finished project, a perfect project, but I know I can bring it to them and then let them say, great, this is a great idea, but what about this, this, and this? And if you can eventually get all those things to line up, or they'll come back and say, I took a project to Universal the other day, and they're kind of like, well, what attachments can you get with this? Can you get an A-lister? Can you get, and if you can get those, come back to us.
And there's your package you were alluding to. You start putting together with all your key players.
Yeah, and that can be an unscripted, and also film is, similar. Film, what cast are you going to attach to your project that's going to then sell your movie and make, if it's independent financing, you can make your investors money back with the cast, and kind of figuring out what is that package that you're taking out. And then also, what is the market buying? What are they looking for? And so a lot of the times, recently it's been really hard to sell projects because of all the mergers with the networks and streamers, like the Warner Bros. Discovery mergers, which I heard they're, I think, going to be bought by Comcast or something. There's more mergers to come, everyone. Get ready.
You're right.
But it's interesting to you have to kind of be aware of the market at the time and who's buying content and who's not. Because a lot of the times when there's a shuffle and there's a merger, maybe the executives change, right? And also just being like friendly with, if you ever get in a chance to be in rooms, being friendly and getting to know those people and what they're looking for is also a big thing.
Yeah, and I think another huge note in that is knowing, like you said, knowing who's buying, but knowing kind of the range in which they're buying for. And that's part of the development process. So here's an example. Somebody brings you a script. This is my favorite question. What's the budget? Well, what's the market bearing? Because this script could be from this price point to this, depending on where it's going, who's, what's behind it, who's in it, like all of that, right? You got to realize, okay, if I pick this up, or you're going to have an idea written, if you're already working for a network and they want this written, then you're going to say, okay, it needs to be written a certain way so the budget doesn't get blown out of the water. Right. So then you have to work with certain writers that know how to write per budget.
Don't write us out of the budget.
Correct. That old attitude, don't write us out of the budget. So development, I think, is more a really, really strategic part of the entertainment industry. It's a very strategic place to sit. It's probably why our little brains like go,
Yeah.
but you still get to be creative in it.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say, there's so many great talent out there, right? So if it's unscripted documentary, sometimes you could find an amazing, I don't know, entertainer or maybe family or interior designer that you want to pitch a show around. But then it's also, what is that format? What show are you pitching? And something I learned by doing this is that a lot of the reality shows, the title of that show actually says what the show is about. Yeah. So for example, Love It or List It on HGTV. They're going to love the house or list it. Or with the Guy Fieri show, Diners, Drivers, and Dives. Like, you're either going to see a diner or a dive. Yeah. And so when you're developing content, it's also being specific. What is the format that I'm
That's true.
pitching around the talent? And sometimes the network or the other maybe production company or a producer that you find that believes in your project will help you build that. But it's being, knowing what is the hook of the show.
Yep.
is a big part of developing original content.
We used to have I've pitched a fair amount of unscripted television.
Yes.
And we used to have like a kind of 3 steps for all of them. We were looking for, at the time, your characters, of course. You have to have characters. At that time, they were like, look, if they can open the phone book and they read the phone book and it's entertaining, they're a good character, is what they were, going for. Yep. And I guess that's different depending on what network and whatnot. But the point is, they're a character. Yep. They are a character, or their family or whatever. They said part of our criteria was the world in which it is. It has to be access to a unique world that we would not normally have access to. Yep. Behind the scenes at Caesar's Palace, the Deadliest Catch. Okay, there's a great example, right? You got crazy. They're all characters. Yeah. If any one of them read the phone book, half of it would be bleeped out. Yeah. But nonetheless, it'd be they're characters. Yep. They're in a unique world. Yep. They're in a world you don't have access to. Otherwise, unless you're on the Bering Sea on that ship, and it's precarious, and it's like a world I want to see and I don't have access to. And then finally was, as you said, the hook. What's the hook? It's not enough to have a characters in a unique world. What's the hook? What keeps me coming back? One of our shows was Storage Hunters. And in Storage Hunters, it's people who have abandoned or not paid their bills on their storage units. Wow. And so ultimately, you got the auctioneer as a character, and all the people around are characters. And at that time, nobody knew about that world. So it's like, what? You can make money going, and I can buy a storage unit, but I don't know what's going to be in it until after I buy it. Yeah. There was our hook.
That's good.
What is it going to be? How much will I get it for? Did I make money or did I lose money when I open it? So there was some kind of hook along the way. In the Bering Sea, they put all these pods out there. They spent all this fuel to get out there. They pull the cage up. Is there crabs? Is there no crabs? It's all, so there is a hook of some sort in every, phase of it. That was our 3. We're always.
Yep. Those are good.
Kind of aim for.
Yeah, and it is so true. Yep, it's so true. And you're trying to create content that keeps you wanting a little bit more.
Yeah.
Something has to be there that you're kind of like.
And what kind of show is it? Does it have an arc? Is there a series arc? Or are they one-offs? That a lot of people, of course, want, because then they can play them as many times as they want in any order that they want, right? Depending, there's a lot. It's a whole.
If you can make a format, if you can make the next, American Ninja Warrior or the next Bachelor, of course, those formats can then go on to be remade in other countries. Exactly. So formats are huge. It's funny, kind of just thinking, and it's a lot of, you just think about a lot of different ideas and throw spaghetti on the wall sometimes. And
it's true.
You pitch a lot, and that's also really hard to do sometimes. And you also get a lot of passes, which is also really hard. But it's almost like, I think for me, where I'm at, obviously, like I was saying, wanting to see, meeting an executive producer and being like, I want to be there, kind of just now starting to be in rooms where I never thought I'd be in, has been challenging, really, right? Because you're so nervous when you're about to go into a pitch, but then just, continuing to go, or kind of just learning what that process is like of being in those rooms, and almost how do you get there, I think is the big question probably, that I had, and that I think most people have.
That is the question.
But I think how you got there was you never stopped seeking it. You've, from the day I met you, you've always had a desire and drive inside of you that we talked about it on another episode. If you have an option to stop or an option out that's not as difficult, by nature we take it. and you've never given yourself the option to not get there. You're like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, that didn't work. I'm gonna do that. Okay, that didn't work. But I know where I want to go. I know I saw that guy show up. I saw that place, and that's where I want to go. And how am I going to get there? And I'm just not going to stop or give an option out of there. I'm going to keep evolving until I eventually make it to that place. And guess what? If you make it to that place and you're like, this isn't all it cracked up to be, there's another opportunity that you're able to pivot and go to. You know, it's just...
That's what she did. She was going one trajectory, and she goes, no, that was a rough ride there. I want to do it a different way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's great.
And finding a way to keep evolving and doing that. And the other thing they say in development, this was hard for me in the beginning. I'm a real loyal person. So when I pick something up, my yeses are yes, my no's are no's. And when I pick something up, it's to the end. You know, like I said in another episode, nobody wins until you hit the finish line. Those are where the trophies are given. So I want to take something, take it all the way to the end. But in development, you got to have like a lot of those balls spinning. You know, I mean, you got to have a lot of those. You got to have a bunch that's going, because you could walk through a door and you got to have something to pivot to. You can't just have one thing. You got to have multiple different things.
What's the age-old thing when you get in those meetings? After you pitch your first thing, what do they say?
What else do you have?
What else do you have?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of it, too, is also something I learned recently was just being proactive, asking, what are you looking for?
Yep.
And when you ask somebody that, when you get into the room and you say, what are you looking for? And you really listen.
Yes.
What is it that they're looking for? And if they say, I want true crime, everyone wants true crime right now. Maybe you have just like a little idea that's true crime. Maybe it's not fully developed. You know, sometimes you have to pivot. Like, or if they say, I absolutely don't want a show about fishing, and you were going to pitch a show about fishing. Don't, you know, I mean, it's a bad, you know, but it really, every project you have, it's not that it's the best project or the worst project.
Yes.
A lot of it is who you're pitching to and what they're looking for.
That's right.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, I think that just goes with just experience of the practice and really being kind of a listener at the same time as you share what your idea is that you believe in, that you've been working so hard on for 2 years or however many years, but just saying, you know, and I think also you have to take rejection in this. Like, it is the biggest thing. And I know this for actors, you know, that are acting in the industry, whether you're a director, screenwriters, it really is for everyone. You have to be open to the fact that you're going to fail so many times. I hope if you don't, I wish that, you know, for everyone, but it is about just learning how to take, no, we're going to pass, not right now, but saying, okay, let me just, you know, pick back up and continue, I think is the biggest.
Not taking it personal.
Thing
it's
that
not,
you have to have.
It's just not personal.
That's it.
And when you're able to be in a lot of those rooms, and I mean, this leads me to two things. One, you've got development that leads to pitching, which is what we're talking a lot about. So if people don't know what pitching is that's when you go in and you have like the project, whatever project, whether it's an episodic, it's a documentary, it's a feature, it's whatever, it's reality, unscripted, script, like all these things, right? You're laying out the concept of what you're trying to get picked up and the details of all that. That's what the development process is. And ultimately, after doing the development process, that lends you to the pitch places, right?
And that's an art in and of itself.
It is total art.
Pitch.
Again, that I think is underserved and not talked about enough
Yeah.
or taught enough, because I have sat on those pitch panels a lot. And inevitably, people will come in, they will start talking, and they're selling me the story. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know if you're talking about a feature film, a documentary, episodic, or what are we doing here for the first? And you only have like so many minutes that you get to pitch,
Right.
and then it's like, I've heard your whole story, but I still don't even know how to categorize it. Like, I don't even know where to put that right now. So my response to you is going to be, what was that you were just telling me? I mean, what's your framework of what you just told? So, I mean, it's like teaching people how to pitch in the right way.
That's true.
And then also do research going into your pitch room. Like, if you know I only pick up sports documentaries, don't come in and pitch me a feature film that's a drama. Like, I'm not gonna I'm not the person that you want to pitch that to, you know, if that's what it is. So it's learning, doing the research in that, and, you know, doing your due diligence through the whole process of it.
You made me think about this because, I mean, I came from an ad world in terms of commercial directing and the commercial side of things. I know you've done a bunch of commercial producing as well.
Yes, commercial producing as well, because you have to do something while your projects are in development for years. So I produce a lot of commercials, and I'm on set all the time.
But having said that, I really learned a lot as a commercial director. Advertising, you only have people's attention so long. So it's the art of saying everything you want to say in as few words as possible. You know, if you read, you know, every idea is not made to be a movie. It's not made to be a this or that. You know, every thing has maybe its form. Maybe that's a better play than it is, you know.
Yeah.
If you're writing a book, you can use a lot of words. If you're if you're doing something that's a visual medium, the point is that it's visual. So the idea is to use less words, show more. If you can show it, show it. Don't say it. Don't have to spell everything out. So in regards to pitching, it really helped me coming from the ad world because it taught me how to convey an idea with as few words as possible. My format for a lot of my career was 30 seconds. I have 30 seconds. And a lot of times I would come as director and flesh out a script that an advertising agency had, but sometimes we would play quasi-agency with a corporate client. So we were writing scripts. We were heavily involved in the process too. So now I'm taking all this brand's information. They have millions and millions, tens of millions wrapped up into this product. And now it's my job to distill it down into 30 seconds, not crush the brand, lift the brand up, and say what we're trying to say in that amount of time. That's really what you're doing in a pitch. You've put all this time and all this effort and all these years potentially into something you have to distill down, do it justice, convey it, you know, in that short amount of time. You know, and to me, I always felt like that was, it helps you with your elevator pitch. It helps you with your one sheet. And all your different, you know, formats for.
Do you guys have any like disaster pitch stories?
Oh.
You know,
We have to.
Well, I can tell you
many?
a lot of disaster pitches that I have set through.
that she's heard.
Yeah.
That's it too. When you're being pitched to, I think then you also learn to just.
I have literally
By
got
listening.
up and prayed for people. I'm like, you know what?
You know what? Listen, it's just,
I really feel like I just need to pray for you right now.
Yeah.
Come on, bring it in. Bring it in. And, you know, I'm just one of those people that's, I would rather tell you the truth, even if it's hard, than just sugarcoat something and continue to watch you not hit your best. Like, that's just my personality. So when I sit on the pitch panels, that's, you know, a lot of my advice. Some of them is just kind of like, there's just not prepared for this. You know, do some more research on pitching and who is in this room.
Yeah.
You just pitched something to 5-6 companies that not one of them would have been interested in what you just pitched, right? And you're trying to build relationships. You have just a few minutes to convey who you are as somebody that I would want to work with, you know? So there's that. So know that when you're walking into a room. You know, if you're lighthearted, fun, passionate, and, you know, if you're somebody that's so nervous you're sweating through your clothes and shaking and just, I mean, I've literally told people, I'm like, hey, look, blah, blah, blah. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give you an extra minute. You're fine. Just take a deep breath.
What did you tell him? What did you tell him?
No. Yeah. But I mean, it's just kind of literally, it's just kind of getting them to blah, 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 blah. Just that. Like, do that so that you'll just relax a minute.
Yeah.
You know, this is not about, you know, whether you're good or not good and we're going to accept you or not accept you. We all have criteria that we have to follow. We all are looking for something particular and specific. So just if we say no to you today isn't killing your dreams.
Right.
Know that.
I
Just
think it's
this isn't the right place.
If you're in that, if you're doing something like that, it's because you're a creator. You're a writer. You have it in you, and that's not the only idea you have. If you're a creator, you have a million of infinite ideas on the inside of you. Don't get stuck. You know, like don't get stuck with the one idea. You got a lot. So just get ready to pitch and pitch and pitch and pitch. Don't get crushed. Don't take it personal.
Yes.
Pull out your next one. What else you got? Got a lot.
Yeah. There's a quote, Kris Jenner, obviously, but she says if someone said no, you're talking to the wrong person.
That's it.
And it like
so
you
good.
have to. I swear that is one of my
That's
like
good.
all-time favorites. Is you're gonna get no's,
Yeah.
but keep going. Something that helps when you're pitching also is just to think of comps. Right when you start off, you say my show is this meets this. And
Yes.
that automatically
Yep.
gives people such a
Framework
this
for
is
what
the
you're about to
this is
say.
what the budget might have to be.
Good.
Is it this is the kind of the style, the tone.
Yes.
So having industry comparables, whether you have an independent feature or a documentary or whatever you're creating, have comparables that you go out and you start with to kind of share
Good.
what you're working on and
I
what it's about.
completely agree. And know the market, know kind of what's going on. So talking about a bad pitch, I was on a pitch-a-thon and I was on the panel, and this guy, great delivery. He did a great delivery, great guy, but he came and pitched a whole concept around COVID. And I was
The
like,
concept was about COVID and around
pretty
it.
much.
Oof.
It was during COVID and
It was during
all the COVID.
Yeah.
And everybody just looked like, that could have been a great idea, but no one is buying COVID. No one is picking up. No one wants to hear about COVID. I mean, we don't want to be entertained by COVID.
Right.
It was just that kind of thing. So my heart just like sank, because then he had to sit up there for, minutes doing this whole spill, and I could see it on everybody's face, and there was like,
It was too soon.
And well, it's just nobody wants
Right.
content over COVID and sickness and the whole. We all just lived it. Like nobody's wanting to watch that. There's a lot of other things that. So just kind of knowing kind of what's.
And that really brings up that it's not even that your idea necessarily is a bad idea. It just might be a bad idea for that time.
Bad timing.
In that season.
Yeah.
I mean, if any of us who've pitched a lot, we know we now have a library of pitches. Not that we're throwing them all away. They're being tweaked. It's for a different season. It's for a different network. It's not right now.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
could pick up the very same thing in 2 years from now.
Or what if it is now? This is my favorite. I'm saying, I love your idea. It's a great idea, but I'm going to need you to change this section of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm going to need you to take out COVID, and we're going to now say it's a natural disaster. Okay? Can you do that? Oh, my life was forever changed by
Wrong answer.
this. And I'm like,
Yeah, I think that happens a lot is you have to pivot,
Yes.
right? So if you have, I just pitched a show about like a chef, right, for a network, and they love the chef, they love the talent, but we originally pitched it as following his business, kind of like the business of his restaurants and what he's doing, entrepreneurship. But they said, we don't want that. Can you do it just about him? And they, and so now they, we're working with him. Okay, how are we going to pitch about you and your food? And sometimes a lot of these unscripted networks want something that's tangible, like what can the audience take away and learn as they're watching something. So it's just being open, listening,
That's true.
to what they're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, and just being willing to do that. I've had plenty of those shows where some of them, and I wasn't married to the idea. I liked the world. There was things I loved about it.
Yeah.
Like there was things I was willing to change to get the thing picked up. It wasn't like such a baby of mine that I had to take all the way, through it. And so some of them, it turned into a totally different idea. But guess who was the producer on it by the end of it? It was me. I didn't love it. It could go both ways. It could be good or bad. It's like, I got my name all over that. But the money coming to my mailbox every month is okay.
it's great.
You know?
Yeah.
So you just got to be willing. You got to be willing. And there might be something that is your baby, that is something that you carry. And you just have to know that it might take you 20 years to do something with that, maybe. I mean, that might be your lifelong pet project. Might be a thing. But.
It makes me think of Steven Spielberg. He didn't really get to do, the film that he just put out, Feebleman.
Right.
It's Steven Spielberg, for crying out loud.
Right.
He did all of those other films
Right.
prior to doing the Feeblemans.
Yeah.
Right? Feebleman was his passion, what he wanted to bring to life, his story, his, it's like one of those, it's so close to you. I'm not changing. This is mine. This is how it has to be told. I'm not going to be told anything different. I believe in it. It's Steven Spielberg. All right. And he even had to wait until
50, 60 years in the making.
So it's that idea that you have to be able to mold to what within bounds, okay? I know this
Yeah.
is preferenced in respect, but, within bounds, you've got to be able to go, okay, yep, I'm willing to modify what we need to modify, and, I'll tweak it. We'll do great, that kind of thing. But if I get an answer right off the bat, somebody comes and, pitches something to me like, this is it, this set us being this, how I see it set, then I'm like, okay, what if I love all this, but what about this one thing? Does it have to be a female? Could that be a male? Could we put some diversity in there? Do they have to be a certain ethnicity? Could I have them be, because in my mind, I'm already thinking if I could make some of these small tweets, I know I can get somebody to look at it.
Right.
But without it, I can't.
Right.
So I'm saying it as in trying to help you bring that to life, but you're going to have to be willing to work with me. And if your answer is no, I can't work with you, period.
Right.
Because who I'm going to work with is going to require me to be workable. And if you're not workable, I can't be workable. And keeping that in mind when you're creating and you're picking up things, that this is concepts that you're going to use, this is what you're going to do, and as much as you can keep that together. But I hear it time and time and time again, oh, they're going to get in the writing room and just change it all, and it's not what and I'm like, well, do you want it to get made or you don't want it to get made? It's up to you.
Yeah. But and the longer you go though, you like Spielberg, you get some stuff under your belt and you're able to, you're able to do more.
That's right.
Hey, I want to hear about, I know because we're probably short on time and whatnot, right? So, so where are you now, Valeria? Like, where are you now, and where do you want to go? What's next, and what's now, and what's the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think where I am now is really, like I said earlier, is finally for the first time, like being in rooms that I, probably dreamt about a few years ago, and kind of finally feeling comfortable being in those rooms. I have been and just to give tangible information to people that maybe want to do development or want to produce but are starting out, I've been doing a lot of fellowships, and so I was accepted into what's called the NALIP Latino Lens Producers Pipeline Incubator, where they select, kind of what they think could be like the next generation of Latin producers, and was able to get amazing mentorship from industry executives. It's almost like when you're so far away from the industry or you really want to break in, it's breaking that barrier, right? How do I get access to the people that are doing it? How do I meet those people? How do I find those people? So being very proactive in that. And then my a pilot that I wrote called Azucar was selected for what's called the Latino Media Market, where I was able to actually pitch to, people, like I said, like rooms that I never thought I'd be in, to Netflix, to HBO, meet the development executive.
Yeah.
So now at least I know, like, who is in there, what are they looking for, how do these networks that are, entertaining, like globally, work. And so it's learning kind of that process, building the relationships.
That's great.
And then I also did Real Screen Pathways program in January, which is just crazy to kind of start this process of other people saying, hey, your work is great, you're actually on the right track, and kind of pushing through. And so that was for unscripted producers. And I had an amazing mentor she is a woman who owns a production company out in LA. She does unscripted, she does narrative, and she also owns a production company. And so kind of meeting these mentors that are out there doing it, someone said to me, you don't have to choose, right? Like, you can do unscripted, you can do narrative, you can be, own a production company and be passionate about the business side of entertainment as well. So for me, it's really been, I think, figuring out, this industry is so massive, right? But it's like, what do you want to do in it? And asking yourself that question, what is it that you really want to do? And kind of deciding that and kind of going after it. And so for me, it is obviously development, but I'm very passionate about the business side of film and owning a production company. And I really want to produce Latin content. So I'm from Mexico City, so I really want to create content for that U.S. Hispanic, a Latin American audience. And the Spanish language content has been blowing up, in the last kind of 5 years, really.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm just, like I said, learning to be in rooms and pitching a lot and developing some really exciting stories. I'm producing my first feature, and then I'm developing a docuseries about breakdancing as well. And
How
so really
fun.
finding really great intellectual property that, like you said, access to those worlds, and then, figuring out how to bring those projects to fruition.
Cool.
For sure.
And the breakdancing, that's a Latin project?
No, that is a project where breakdancing is going to the Olympics in 2024. So we're developing
How
Get
fun.
outta
content
here.
around
Fun.
that
Fun.
process. So yeah, I think just sourcing and finding right
That's
something
cool.
for audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I
Oh,
love
that's
it.
amazing. Man, you're such a firecracker. You've done so many cool things in such a short amount of time. You're a go-getter. You're, just a little hustler. I've always loved the way you think and the way you do. It's been fun to have a front row seat to watch you just grow and thrive in this industry. So I just thank you for sharing. Thanks for giving our audience another insight into part of this world, part of this industry that I think is underserved and under talked about. So I think it was great, everything that you shared today, and hope that y'all are encouraged and gleaned some real wisdoms on, developing your project and finding a way to pitch and get into that aspect of creating. So thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. Glad to have you here today. I think we only scratched the surface here. I think this is
for sure.
got to be a part 2 at some point. But
For sure.
Yes.
super excited to have you on the show today.
Yeah.
And so I mean, how do we
Thanks for having me.
how do we connect? How do we find you
Yeah.
online if people want to connect, or
Yeah.
is there a way to
Follow
do all
you,
that?
kinda
Follow
see what
you?
you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yes, yeah. I do have an Instagram, which I'm not too active on, but we're getting ready to launch a website called Poppy Content, which is the name of my production company.
Okay.
So
Okay,
That is to
so
come
great,
soon.
exciting things to come. So if they
Yes.
follow you at one of those, then it'll lend them to the new website that's
Yeah.
coming. And
Perfect.
excited to see all the stuff that you have
Love it.
coming up. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. And so until next time, we'll see you on Set Life.